Hello there and welcome. I'm Delane and we're here today to talk with Consciousness Mercredan, which is channeled by trance medium Francis Evans. Today we're going to be asking Mercredan about neurodiversity and the causes, the purpose and the spiritual meaning behind it. So if you'd like to please like this video and enjoy it and subscribe, that would be great. And you can keep updated. Feel free to add any questions or topic suggestions and in the comment box for future videos. Okay, now we're going to cross to Francis and see what Mercredan has to say to us today. Over to you, Francis.
Once again, it is my privilege and pleasure to come and spend these few moments of your time. To begin, one creates one's personal reality, and one creates within a framework of the fields of influence. And within the field of influences, one creates one's, shall we say, group reality, shall we say. Then an individual creates their own experience, a family creates its own experience, and shall we say, a community creates its own experience. Do you follow? And each one is interconnected, interdynamic, interrelated. So shall we say then, when changes are coming to the forefront, the creation is not only personal, individual, but also a mass dynamic. In other words, shall we say, when one is writing, authoring one's novel experience, one's storyline, it is not possible, shall we say, to be only isolated without interactions with the communal effect. In other words, your story is a container of the interpersonal relationships within that communal identity. Enough for us to begin a conversation.
Thank you, Mercredan. So we wanted to talk about neurodiversity today, the causes and the purpose for all the different types of children born today with ADHD, autism, and the like. And we're interested to know, are these children meant to be neurodiverse as part of the new species development, or is it an aberration of all the pollutants and toxins in our societies, perhaps?
Maybe one should consider the notion of pollution. Pollution occurs within the physical realm, obviously, within the emotional realm, not so well understood, in the mental framework, by the ongoing spread of dis-ease, that is misinformation and propaganda. And as a result, it affects shall we say, the mental capacity of the general population. Shall I then say humanity is what you are calling neurodiverse. In other words, instead of picking out one type, would it be possible to say that the entire human population has an aberration? In many cases, it is addictions, or it is uncontrolled outbursts, requirements for benefits above others. You understand? So, shall we say, those children that are born with such notions that are being identified as different may be as, shall we say, a new genetic disorder. There are few of them, and therefore you can point to them as the aberration. Do you understand what I'm saying? But humankind, in the general effect, is serving itself to ongoing polluted theories and attitudes. And very few can identify themselves as problematic. Do you follow? And so you are attempting to propagate one's continuation of misleading ideas and treating anyone who would not identify with that or is incapable of processing that in an ordinary sense. Do you follow? So then all over the planet you have children who find it more and more difficult to agree with what is presented to them. Do you understand what I mean? I am going to give you an example. In the present time, children are expected to read and write. And yet, very often, reading and writing as a proper way of communication is dying away. Now, more and more are talking because the new newspaper is, in fact, a live discussion. It is opinionated and so on. So then, what is the purpose of continuing to promote something that is no longer of consideration? You understand? How did the very notion of reading and writing come into general acceptance? Only when humankind decided there was a business to be operated, distributing written material to the many people around. The way of influencing the way of expanding the field of influence. Do you understand what I'm getting at? So shall we say those that you are calling neurodiverse are operating with different systems of distribution. Does this make sense? Shall we call it then an evolution in advancement of human creativity? And as I have pointed out, humankind's create their own reality through creativity. Otherwise, you would simply repeat the same old thing over and over until it was no longer relevant. The human species in that circumstance would die away. So it is creativity which opens opportunities and avenues, and in doing so creates different, shall we call them, diversions from the ordinary agreed upon rules of engagement. When we talk of rules of engagement, it always appears as if this is a game of war. Do you follow what I'm saying?
You say war. What are you meaning exactly?
I am saying one group against another. This one has the rightness and that one is the wrongness. Do you follow? So the rules of engagement, what are you allowed to do and what are you not allowed to do? Do you follow what I mean? So if the child does not fit, then it has to be isolated unless its properties begin to pollute the general agreements. Follow what I mean? They are outside the rules of engagement. I want to say, in many ways, every individual is hiding their differences from everyone else. You do not want to take a stand for what you really believe in case you are rejected, isolated, and sent to a colony. Do you follow how this means for the young ones who are in often leading the way forward in offering different approaches to living? Some of them certainly come into embodiment to stir up and awaken the human population to their limited expressions.
Understood.
In
So,
such a way, sometimes the most brilliant of minds, that is, those that have overdeveloped the mental body, finds the physical body difficult to operate within. Do you follow? So it is an important prospect for every human to come into being, to come into the physical world in time and space, that is, being present in their bodily experience, being aware of their, shall we say, their emotional responses to the present moment in time, and being aware of their mental judgments and ideas that are present, creating the moment they are engaged in. You understand? Being fully awake.
okay, that's really interesting. Thank you. So what are they teaching us, do you think?
Shall we say, first of all, they are exploring. Those, shall we say, that find it difficult to come into a moment of time. They are, shall we say, demonstrating what occurs if you are not present, because they are pushing the human beings into trying to bring them into the present moment. And in order to do that, a human has to be in the present moment. Do you follow what I mean? So they are demonstrating more, shall we say, than teaching. It is not in their purpose to teach anything, but in their purpose is to find a mechanism to be in the present and be in control of their own place in the world.
So if this
That is one type, of course. We have spoken before about those that are communicating outside of the need for, shall we call it, physical operation. So they are leading, if you like, the operation of unification in consciousness. I want to say this. You arrive in a forest. The first people to come must cut a track through the forest. And the next follow the track that has been cut in the forest. And so on. Eventually, the track becomes a road for everyone to use. The forest then can be transversed. You understand what I'm saying? So those that are beginning to make headway, shall we say, in conscious communication, forging a network that is followed, becomes easier to navigate over time. I also want to say, you'll notice how difficult new concepts are for those trained in limited thinking. So first of all, one has to open the option to perceive how will that be if that were true. Would it lead to a more unified society, a society that is taking care of itself, its nation, its planet, and so on? Is it therefore constructive, or is it destructive? Which are you going to put your attention on as you engage your creativity and begin to create your experience in life? Do you follow what I'm getting at? So as these beings come more into the planet as exposures, that is something to be created, and the limitation to be destroyed. Everything must be completed and laid to rest. Does this make sense?
Yes.
Does it answer the question, of course?
Well, yes, not what we expected though. So if the purpose is to broaden our diverse thinking and get away from limited thinking, can you see what the challenge would be for parents, and how can we assist parents to open their minds to their children who are diverse and thinking and a benefit?
One has to manage the wider field of influence. When, shall we say, a child is accepted, when a child is recognized that they do not fit with the general, then how must it be for the child? In other words, if a parent is to identify with the experience of the child, then automatically they become more compassionate and have become aware of what guidance as the adult, shall we say, as the more experienced, to help the child to integrate, to bring their differences to work for them within the communal wholeness. Do you follow what I mean? And sometimes that is simply to remove them from the propaganda machine, because so many of them are being treated in a way that is destructive, trying to imprison something in an ordinary sense. That is not to say they are allowed to destroy everything around them. But when one is accepted and brought into the calmness, they will find in the main that their extreme nature begins to calm down. But one should not think they will ever be limited by the normality and the rules of engagement. Does this make sense?
Yes, it does.
Because you have to realize this is experiential. Each individual is a special case, of course. And each family unit as an identity is a special case, of course. And if the field of influence of the family is in conflict, then one should expect the individuals within it to be in conflict. So how would one expect one's child to not be in conflict? You understand? Some of these operations are designed to bring the unit into a unified effort. Do you follow what I mean? To bring everyone into the present moment of experience and to find their value and purpose as the unit, as the individuals making up the field of influence. Does this offer some considerations?
Absolutely. And it's a very different thought to what I should think is the normal thinking towards these beautiful beings and then obviously their divine purpose to bring us a different experience.
So I want to say this. Humanity is moving to communication on an inner, shall we call it, for this purpose, a psychic realm of communication. If that is the case, then all the other existing mechanisms are redundant. Now you have to rethink because, shall we put it this way, the psychic field is the field of influence. So everything will be created from the elements of the container all the way to the field of influence of an individual. In other words, an individual can create to the degree of the acceptance as normal of the collective field of influence. If you try to create outside of that, then you will be excluded. You will be determined as, shall we say, mentally unstable. So as the field, the communal field of influence is unified, human individuals will find the idea of separation becoming more difficult. The notion of taking more than is necessary, in other words, to control distribution of resources, will become more isolated and eventually will no longer exist. It is just as the golden age, as you understand it, is beginning. That is the shift in consciousness.
Thank you. That's really exciting, isn't it?
All of it fits together in an exciting package, shall we say. Consciousness is ascending, as it is so often put. But it is not individuals who are ascending. It is consciousness itself. Enough for today. So once again, it is most important to value those that implement the learnings that, shall we say, fertilize the fields of influence. Thank you and goodbye.
Wonderful. And thank you, who's out this today. Please click the like button and subscribe if you'd like to keep updated. And if you're interested in learning more about our private channeling sessions, the link is in the description below. We'll be here again in 3 more days, and Libby will be talking with Mercredan about sexuality, sex, sexual orientation, and more. Please note this will be at 12:30 New Zealand time, which is 2 hours later than our usual time. So thanks again, and bye for now.